Dude, I saw the best Animal Crossing prequel meme on Reddit this morning. I'll have to send it to you.
Was it the high ground one?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think Katie showed it to me.
All right. Oh, we need to sync up.
Yeah. Hello, and welcome to the Interstate Gamers Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin, a.k.a. K-Slugs.
My name is Peter, a.k.a. Deal For Real, and I'm also your host.
Well, welcome, everyone, to the 9th episode of Season 4.
Mighty number 9.
Yeah, man, it's been, this season, it's felt like a long one. Of course, there's been delays, pandemics, graduations, and life events, but we just keep on trucking, and we're here to provide you guys with this amazing content that we know you love and is super popular. So yeah, thanks.
Yeah. And speaking of long season, actually, this one will be a cool 11 episodes.
Ooh.
We're going to have some good episodes to end off the season. We're really excited.
Hell yeah, brother. I'm excited for these last few episodes.
Yeah.
We kind of had a little bit of a break last week. I know it's normally we tried to get the episodes out every other week or every 2 weeks basically, but it just didn't end up working out this time. But that's okay. We accept the I don't know what I'm trying to say here. I'm saying it's okay, but we're back in action with this episode. And speaking of this episode, what do we have for them today, P-Boy?
We have quite a treat for all the people out there today. Tell you what. We have here a famous racing game from a famous racing game franchise, none other than Burnout 2: Point of Impact.
Yeah, Burnout 2, baby. I was really excited to play this one because I had never played any other Burnout besides Burnout 3, which was amazing and I loved. So I was like, I wonder what Burnout 2 is like. And it's actually a little bit hard to find Burnout 2, but we were able to, I think you and I were both able to emulate it on the good old fashioned Dolphin emulator. That was pretty convenient. People, I'm curious because I believe you were the one that recommended this game be in the season. What was your reasoning behind that?
I was kind of trying to get a couple more racing games into our lineup because that was something I don't think we had done any racing games besides Mario Kart 64 before this season. And so we did Diddy Kong Racing, but then I also wanted us to have kind of a more like quote unquote realistic racing game,
right,
which Burnout really isn't by design. But I was curious to play it because I, unlike you, I had almost no prior experience with any Burnout games. I think I did play Burnout 3 for exactly one night at a friend's house in middle school. And never again did I play any Burnouts. Mm-hmm. But I knew it was a pretty famous franchise. And it's been going on. It has some games as recent as like 2009 or 2010. And they made like a remastered version of one of those games just a couple of years ago.
Right.
So I just kind of wanted to see what it was all about. Just a little bit of background information. Burnout 2 was developed by Criterion Games and published by Acclaim Entertainment. I remember them being around like in the SNES and N64 era.
Right.
But I think they dissolved quite some time ago. For those of you who don't know, the Burnout series is all about driving dangerously. One fun fact I learned is that Acclaim Entertainment tried to do this marketing campaign in the UK where they would say, hey, we're going to reimburse drivers who got speeding tickets to promote Burnout 2.
What?
And the government was like, hey, how about don't do that?
That's actually awesome.
So unfortunately, that never happened. So yeah, Kevin and I played the GameCube version of this game, which was released in 2003, but I believe it came out on the PS2 and the Xbox in 2002. Or maybe the Xbox one came out later. Point is, 2002 to 2003 is when this game came out. I think that's all the general overview context. You ready to get into the gameplay?
Let's get into those meat and potatoes, boy.
Yeah.
I will start out by saying the driving aspect of the game felt pretty smooth, especially for a GameCube game. I felt like I was running, and it may be because I'm running a Dolphin emulator with my souped up Epic Gamer PC, but I felt like it was running at a smooth 60 the entire time. And there were no hiccups. I never really felt any hiccups or anything. So that's really good.
Yeah.
I will say that the physics, so you will see me make a lot of comparisons to Burnout 3 because it's the next game in the series and I have a lot of opinions about that game. But I will say that the physics in that game were a little bit better than this one, in that when you crashed into another car, Burnout 3 made it a little more exaggerated. And I think given the nature of Burnout and how it works and how they put so much emphasis on crashing, it worked out a little bit better than this game.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I noticed. To compare it even further, it felt like an arcade version of Burnout from what I'm used to. I've played a couple of Burnouts here and there, but obviously 3, the one I've had the most experience with. But this is an older one and it is only the second one in the iteration. But it felt like an arcade version, like I mentioned. It just felt really kind of watered down, simple game modes, very straightforward game.
Yeah.
And I thought that was interesting. I don't know that I really liked that, but the gameplay felt really basic in my opinion.
Just for the record, I did actually play Burnout 2 on the Wii. Like I was emulating the GameCube game on the Wii.
Oh, okay.
And even on that native hardware, it still ran at the smooth 60.
That's good.
Unfortunately, your Epic Gamer PC cannot take all the credit for that one. Yeah, so I would have liked to play Burnout 3, but I think that without having personally any Burnout 3 experience to compare my gameplay with this game, I still enjoyed myself quite a bit. It definitely was arcadey. It's not a simulation driving game by any means. But I really liked the way that they emphasize the dangerous driving. Like as you have near misses with other vehicles, as you drift, as you get airtime, you fill up your boost meter. And then once your boost meter is full, you can boost for a solid 10 to 15 seconds or something. It's a decent amount of time. So it's a cool balance between do I risk driving dangerously to get the boost, or do I play it safe because I don't want to lose my lead or get further behind? And I thought that was a really fun aspect that other racing games I've played, which admittedly haven't been too many racing games, I really liked the distinction that this one had with that gameplay.
Right.
I think in Burnout 3, you can do a thing called a takedown where you intentionally crash into your opponents in some way that is more effective than anything you could do to your opponents in this game.
Yeah.
And I feel like that would have added a lot more depth for sure. But I was trying to, judge it from just playing this game on its own merit. And so while the gameplay wasn't, revolutionary, I wouldn't say, it felt really solid to me and really fun and fast and furious.
Nice. Yeah. It kind of, it's in that era of Midnight Club, isn't it? Did you ever play that game?
I did not. The only other kind of normal racing game I played during this era was Need for Speed Underground.
Yeah, that one too. That one's a really critically acclaimed one. And I think that one's more open world based, isn't it?
The second one in the series is. Yeah. I just played the first one, which is not open world.
Right. Okay. Well, I feel like, in this era, there were a lot of other racing games that were able to incorporate a lot of depth. This felt more just like it was very uneventful, I should say. But I don't want to harp too much on that. I have other opinions about this game. The races themselves, I thought were a little too long at times.
Yeah.
Especially when you're in the lead, you're just kind of racing and you're like, it didn't feel super challenging at times. And there are only four cars in most races and most game modes. So yeah, that was kind of a bummer.
Yeah, you do only ever race against 3 other opponents, but there's always the traffic to consider, right?
Right.
And different levels have different amounts of traffic. And it seemed to me that the traffic was consistently placed, from lap to lap. I would always run into the same bus, around the same spot on different laps,
right.
Which I thought was kind of interesting. I don't know if that's good or bad, because they're kind of giving you an opportunity to learn the course and learn the traffic, which I think makes the game more fair.
Right.
Because if things are just randomly placed, I feel like there'd be a lot more that crash is bullshit moments, which I definitely had some of those moments, but not as much as I would expect from a game that's all about dodging traffic.
Right. Yeah.
It actually felt pretty intentional the way that they designed the traffic, and I actually really enjoyed that. But I kind of agree with you. Some of the races definitely felt pretty long. There were some 7 to 8 minute races in there, which I guess kind of turns it into an endurance challenge, right? How long can you go without crashing or otherwise messing up?
Yeah, I lost my first race I led all of the laps except for the last one. At the very end, I crashed because I wasn't really exactly sure the strategy behind the game, but I was starting to get it. And on my very first race, I lost at the end because I crashed and the other guy didn't, and he just went zooming past me. And the crash animation kind of takes a while.
Yeah.
So he was able to catch up in like the 3 or 4 seconds he was behind me.
What is kind of nice about the crashing, though, is that whenever you crash, you get placed further along the track than you were when you actually crashed. So it does like give you a little bit of help. What I found very satisfying is that sometimes when you crash, the wreckage will cause the other racers behind you to crash.
Yes.
And so there's some times where that happens. I'm like, oh, hell yeah, y'all ain't getting past me this time.
Yeah, I noticed that too. Like every time I crashed, I would not get past. So that one race where I got past, I guess there wasn't any traffic around me or I crashed into something. But most of the time when I crashed into the traffic, like, I was like, how come nobody's passed me yet? And it's because they were also ran into traffic. So yeah, interesting.
And sometimes they crash on their own too, which is nice. Like they're not flawless AI. There were some races where I was in second place for like half of the whole race and I felt like I was doing pretty good, but the AI just never crashed, it seemed. And so I guess that goes to the point of the difficulty. Like you were saying, you often felt like you weren't being challenged.
Mm-hmm.
I generally felt that the game was pretty easy.
Yeah.
Like I never had problems winning a championship Grand Prix, but there were some individual races that like I just kept crashing. And so I would get like 3rd or 4th place for that race, but still win the cup. And there's some things you have to unlock by getting first place on every race. So after failures in some of those, I was like, I don't really feel like unlocking that thing that badly. Like not when I have to do a 30-minute Grand Prix flawlessly,
Right.
So it's kind of weird, like pretty easy game overall, but doing certain things or getting first on certain races seemed to be quite difficult. But I never felt bored, really. Like there was never a point where I was playing in the middle of a race and I was like, okay, I'm done with this. Because I think just the sense of speed that the game provides and the need to always be thinking about traffic, it helped keep me on my toes and kept the game interesting, even if I was in first place for a long time.
Yeah, I kind of had the opposite experience. I kind of got bored pretty quickly. I mean, that might have a lot to do with my experience of Burnout 3.
Yeah.
But I kind of got bored. I did, however, something I've always enjoyed about Burnouts, crash mode was really fun. I always enjoy crash mode. If you want to explain that mechanic.
Yeah, actually, it's funny because crash mode was the first thing I did. Like I did the entirety of crash mode, which is 30 tracks before I even did the normal racing. But crash mode, you're given it's kind of like a puzzle game, really, where you're given a small area of street and there's traffic that's always set a certain way. And your goal is to crash and create the most amount of of damage as possible, like monetary value damage. And so you just keep going at it, trying to figure out the optimal crash to get the most damage done. And sometimes it's pretty difficult to get the gold medal on those stages, but I got silver at least on everything, and then gold on most of them, except for maybe like 5 or so of the tracks that were pretty difficult, I thought. But it was a lot of fun. Like I said, it was kind of a puzzle game, but with these racing game mechanics. And that was another part of the game that they would expand upon in Burnout 3 as well.
Yeah, in 3, you could unlock cars specifically for crash mode, which I thought was really awesome. You can get like an 18-wheeler and different things like that. And they'll like a lot of them, you start off and then you'll go off a ramp into traffic, which is really cool. And the crashes in that game are a little more exaggerated by nature. So if you run into something going at a pretty high speed, your car is going to like flip into the air like 1,000 times. So there's like some aspect of that into it. Like you can hit a car and then have your car flip in such a way where it goes across traffic to like another street and causes havoc over there.
Yeah.
And you can like choose to slow down time and watch it all unfold. It's just like really cool.
Yeah. It's really awesome how like how just into crashes these games are. And again, like that was the whole Burnout brand, right? And I'm sure that there were a lot of parents out there who didn't want their kids playing this dangerous driving game. But like looking back on it, especially with the context that, the early mid-2000s was all about like extreme this and extreme that. Like it's just kind of funny looking back at that time.
Yeah.
I do want to briefly talk about some of the other single player elements besides crash mode. So mainly you have like crash mode and then you have the main championship. And each championship consists of a bunch of Grand Prix, which is, just a bunch of normal races in a row. But they also throw in some like point A to point B races, which are interesting because you don't have the opportunity to like learn the course, which some people may like, some people may dislike, but I think it's a fun variety.
I agree.
They have pursuit mode where you drive a cop car and you have to ram the enemy car a bunch of times to disable it. And then you unlock that car, which I thought was really cool. Cool way to tease a new vehicle for you. And there's also face-off mode, which is the same thing, except you're not pursuing the enemy car. You're just trying to beat them in a head-on or a head-to-head race. It broke up the action a little bit because some of the Grand Prix could get pretty long. So it was nice to have little small breaks in between them.
Yeah, and the number of races increase per Grand Prix.
Yeah, like the final Grand Prix in the whole game is 7 races, I think. Which that's pretty up there. It's an endurance race for sure.
Yeah, it felt kind of long to me, so I was just like, I
guess one thing that's kind of odd is that you can unlock all these new cars, and generally the cars get better as you unlock them. So by the end, you have like supercars and, custom cars and all that stuff. So like if you're driving one of the later Grand Prix and you're using an early game car, I feel like you're handicapping yourself, which is kind of cool because like if you want to give yourself an extra challenge, I guess you can do that. But
yeah,
otherwise, there's not really any incentive to use any of the cars from the beginning of the game.
Yeah, I really liked the NASCAR looking car. I drove with that one a lot.
Yeah, that one was cool.
That one had some pretty good stats, and I felt like once I got that car, it was like nobody could touch me.
Yeah. Plus, it's just kind of goofy to be driving a stock car like on normal ass streets and highways.
Yeah. I don't have a whole lot to say about gameplay, honestly. I feel like I've said it all.
Yeah.
And Burnout 2, I feel like it's kind of that game where there's not a lot to talk about given that the nature of the game.
Yeah.
As we've talked about, like the arcade style, like simplicity.
Yeah. I unfortunately never got to play multiplayer, but I bet that would be really fun.
Yeah, you know what? I tried to get Chris to play with me and he wouldn't do it.
Damn that Chris. Yeah, because almost every type of challenge from single player mode, you can also do multiplayer. So like all the racing types, you can do split screen, which unfortunately does slow the game down to 30 FPS, I read, but that's still playable. Like I've played 30 FPS racing games before. And then you can do crash mode with up to 4 people where you all take turns trying to out crash each other. So I can totally imagine this game being like a multiplayer success back in the day. Like, and I know for a fact it was because like I've read all these people talking about, man, I used to play Burnout with so-and-so. And I think you used to play Burnout 3 with Casey all the time.
Yep, I sure did.
Good stuff there. That's pretty much all I got.
Yeah, same here.
So what did you give it?
I gave it a hot, fresh 76.
76, not bad. I was a little more favorable, I guess partially because I didn't have Burnout 3 to compare it to.
Yeah.
So I gave it an 85.
85, all right.
Yeah. Yeah, my view was, very simple game, but I think what it does very well.
Yeah, and like I mentioned, playing the game felt fine. It never felt like, I experienced anything that was just awful and the gameplay was broken in certain ways, like some of the other games we've played, Sonic.
Yeah.
But it was more so that it didn't really challenge me and it wasn't super exciting. So from my perspective, so I think that was my only real issue with it. If you had to give it like a TLDR.
Yeah.
But moving on to everyone's favorite section, aesthetics. So, visuales. Do you want to start off with that one?
Hell yeah, brother. So I thought that the in-game visuals are pretty good. The environments look fairly vibrant and detailed. Nothing mind-blowing for sure. This wasn't a game that was going to like make people want to buy a GameCube or a PS2 or whatever because of how good the graphics looked. And maybe the graphics differed by console as well. But on the GameCube version, at least, they were good, not amazing. The game all takes place in like a fictionalized version of California. So you've got like a downtown San Francisco kind of area. You've got a coastal highway area. You've got other highways. There's an airport level, which can be very fun, but frustrating also because of the way that the course is laid out. So they have these different environments. And I thought that they did a pretty good job of making the different environments feel unique. Like obviously it's all pretty realistic. So there's nothing ever crazy happening that Like, you're never driving in a volcano or whatever. Although that would be pretty cool.
That would be dope.
Once again, like, the scope of the thing was kind of limited, taking these California environments. But I thought that they did a pretty good job at that. The cars were all pretty generic, but some of them did look kind of cool. Like driving the stock car was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Otherwise, like, nothing really too much going on there.
Hot rod.
The hot rod, yeah. I have other thoughts about like the GUI and such, but I was wondering if you had your own comments about like the in-game graphics.
Yeah, so the environments, I thought at times they were unique, but there were also times where like everything felt the same. Like, there were a lot of times where I felt like, or I didn't really know exactly if I was on a different map or not. Well, towards the beginning, I figured out later that I was like, oh wait, these are different maps. But, towards the beginning, I was like, these are all kind of the same. And then once you progress in the game, you open up a little bit more with the maps. And in crash mode, some levels felt the same. And then all of a sudden you're in like this snowy environment and you're like, wait a minute.
Yeah, that one definitely felt more unique than all the rest.
Right. And so, there's a lot of different environments, but some of them look very similar and then some of them are like drastically different. So I like somewhat agree on that, but I think overall the visuals look pretty good for its era, especially on the GameCube version. I do wonder how the PlayStation 2 or the Xbox look, because I didn't get a chance to like play on those. I imagine they're similar, but I think the game looked pretty good. Like me thinking about a GameCube and a racing game on the GameCube and how smooth it operated with the 60 FPS and the cars look good. I mean, that's one of the things about Burnout is the cars look good. I mean, it's no Forza, but I mean,
yeah,
it's what it was designed for. I think it does a really, really good job with the visuals.
Yeah, I think they could have probably like added more pizzazz to the in-game graphics, but probably at the cost of the frame rate.
Right.
And so if that was something that they had, considered the pros and cons of, then I'm pretty glad that they did what they did, because playing this game in 60 FPS feels awesome compared to playing Need for Speed Underground, which is at 30 and, has its own set of visual quirks.
Because you want a racing game to feel smooth and a little bit quicker and faster.
Yeah.
And I imagine they had to handle, multiple different consoles because it is on the GameCube, PS2, and Xbox. So it probably got a little tricky.
Yeah. One thing I was kind of concerned about going in was how easy it was going to be to tell where the course was, like driving through these city streets with traffic at these very fast speeds. But I found that, in my opinion, the game did a good job of using those like green arrows to light your path, telling you like, hey, there's an intersection, but don't go this way instead. And so they used a combination of like bright green arrows and red X's to help you navigate that. Even as I was driving at a fast speed, like you could oftentimes spot these green arrows from a long distance away. So between that and just like paying attention to the lines on the road. Oh, I drove in first person as well.
Oh,
I don't know about you, but
no, I didn't.
Because I'm a hardcore epic driver.
I like being able to see my car. I think that's the
Well,
for me.
Since this game isn't Forza, I wasn't quite so worried about looking at my car. But I found that it was pretty easy to tell where I was going most of the time. And obviously it helps when you play the courses more and you get familiar with them. There were a few times where I made some wrong turns and I was like, oh, well, what the hell? Like, I couldn't tell where I was going. But I think that was kind of me being a little bit of a scrub in those moments.
Right.
Otherwise, I found it pretty intuitive.
Yeah, now that you mention it, in Burnout 3, I had like maybe, I don't know if it's personal thing, but I felt like Burnout 3 was not as good as Burnout 2 in this regard. Like, there are still the green arrows that show you where to go. I don't know if they're green. They may be yellow or something, but they definitely weren't as apparent, or maybe the nature of the game was more chaotic so you weren't as like looking forward in this game as you are in that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I felt like it was very clear where to go at all times. Burnout 3, I felt like sometimes I was like, holy shit, there's like a turn there. And I would run into the wall and die. I'm like,
skirt.
Yeah. So I think the game did a really good job of that in terms of level design and the aesthetics in regards to that. So
yeah,
kudos.
My last visuals comment is about the user interface, as I mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
The in-game user interface, I think, is fine. But what I feel strongly about is like the main menu and all those other related menus. Everything feels very like soft and like kind of baby blue and like rounded corners and things.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, this game doesn't really look like a game that's all about driving fast and reckless and crashing and stuff. Like,
right. It's kind of boring.
Yeah, it's kind of boring. And like, again, my closest comparison to this game is Need for Speed Underground, which on the complete opposite end of the spectrum had like such a cool stylized menu and just general user interface, and everything was all like kind of techie and like made these cool clicks and beeps and bloops and like these cool animations, and just had an aesthetic that matched its game so well. And I guess this game kind of did look like an arcade game, which the gameplay played like an arcade game. So I guess there it kind of makes sense. But I still feel like it could have been done in a way that made the menus more relevant to the way that the game actually played and felt like.
Yeah, you know what? That's a really good point. I kind of had noticed that too. Or maybe I subliminally noticed it because I was like, in the back of my mind, I was like, okay, like this game's kind of boring. And maybe the GUI played along with that because it wasn't just very poppy. And the third one, spoilers, fixes that. It's pretty like Burnout 3 Takedown. And you feel like you're playing like a game that you are designed to run into things.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. It's a very tame graphical interface, and that's interesting.
Tame that's a very good way to put it.
Yeah.
Well, that's all I got.
Same. What'd you give it?
Gave it a hot, fresh, hot, cold 75.
75. Nice. I actually went up and gave it an 86.
Damn, we just did a little like flip flop there.
Yeah, I thought it did a pretty good job for, GameCube. I don't know many GameCube games, racing games, that looked as good as Burnout 2. So
yeah, I think maybe the GUI kind of was a sticking point for me, as you could tell.
Yeah. Well, moving on to the audio, I'll kick off this section and I'll say I thought it was okay.
Yeah,
nothing spectacular. The hard rock theme is pretty cool, and I hate to be a dead horse, but the third one like just blew the audio out of the water because the cars sound a lot better. And in terms of the soundtracks, it had all these soundtracks from iconic like artists and different songs like that, mostly like from the punk rock era of like My Chemical Romance. Like they did I'm Not Okay, or I think Yellow Card was in there. There's a lot of that stuff. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's actually really cool. And you can, I know I'm talking about Burnout 3 more than Burnout 2, but you could import your own songs into Burnout 3, which I thought was really cool. So, knowing that, I'd have to say it's not as spectacular in this game, but I don't think it did a bad job by any means. So kind of the narrative for me in regards to this game.
I didn't realize that Burnout 3 had licensed music. That's actually like a pretty huge move on their part.
Right.
Editor's note, Burnout 3 was published by EA, which was well versed in licensing music for its games.
I thought that the hard rock and like, it's like a fusion of hard rock and electronics, right, in this game. And sounded very appropriate to the time that it came out, for sure. It's almost like a caricature of that kind of music. It definitely fit the atmosphere of the game, I thought, like way better than the menu did, for example.
Right.
So I think it did that well. But yeah, not too many like things that are catchy are particularly cool. I think the main menu theme is pretty cool, like the dun 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 dun. Like that got stuck in my head the past few days as I was playing the game. And like one other soundtrack was catchy. But one thing I thought was cool is that when you're driving without boost, the music is fairly quiet and the mix isn't as full. Like there are a few like instrumental parts that are missing. Mm-hmm. But then when you boost, the volume jumps up dramatically and then all of the instruments come in. So like you really feel it when you're boosting. I think that's a great idea on paper. And I think in the game it worked pretty well. But the problem is that like the stripped back version of the songs that you were hearing when you weren't boosting were like too stripped back to the point where they became like super forgettable. Also, it didn't help that it was like too quiet, in my opinion. They kind of exaggerated the effect too much.
Right.
As far as sound effects go, they were adequate. Pretty much all the sounds you'd expect. Crash sounds were satisfying, but that doesn't seem like the hardest thing to accomplish.
Right. I will say there's a really funny sound effect in there when you basically gain boost by, you know, getting close to a car or something like that. It sounds like you're at the grocery store checking out an item.
Yeah.
Boop, boop. I'm like, oh my God, am I at the grocery store? Boop.
That's another thing, actually. Now that you remind me, the sound effects from the menu navigation was also kind of like cheerful and like high pitched. It kind of sounded more like something from a Mario Kart game. So
yeah,
another weird little thing there. That's really all the comments I have on the audio.
Same. Yeah, I don't think I wrote anything down other than what we've said. So let's give it some scores. Why not?
Why don't you start, buddy?
Oh yeah, 77. I give it a 77.
Oh, me? Oh yeah. I was in agreement with you on this one. I gave it a 75.
Dang, all right. We're back in sync. I feel like we've been out of sync lately, and it feels good to get back on track.
There's value in having different opinions.
True.
But there's also value in being like brothers, only closer, as SpongeBob would say. You were my brother, Kevin.
I have failed you. Moving on to content. Which one? Who's doing this one? So I did gameplay.
It's my turn, buddy.
It's your turn again.
Yeah. I'm the content master, if I may.
Yeah.
I found the content to be quite good all across the board, really. My good friend, howlongtobeat.com, said that this game would take about like 10 to 15 hours, depending on how thoroughly you wanted to complete everything and like try to get all the gold medals and stuff. And I did a pretty good effort at trying to, 100% the game, but didn't put in the most effort. So I got to maybe like, I don't know, 90% if I were to give it a number. But yeah, I was pretty happy with all that. What did you think?
Ooh, we may have some differing opinions on this one. I thought the content was pretty weak. I just thought it wasn't very challenging, and oftentimes it was. I'm sad to say it was boring. There's not a whole lot to do, and the game is, like we've discussed, is really short. And when you are in the races, they feel long and drawn out, and you're just like, okay, I've about the second or third lap, I'm pretty done with this course. I'm just in the lead, and this is great and all, but I don't feel like I'm being challenged. So I didn't have a lot of motivation to keep playing. Maybe Burnout 3 ruined this for me, but it just felt like a watered down version of what I know Burnout to be. And it kind of made me, I was playing and I was kind of like, oh man, they really had like a huge jump from Burnout 2 to Burnout 3. It's kind of funny. While I was writing my review, I found myself on the Burnout subreddit, which of course there's a Burnout subreddit. And 5 days ago, someone posted, it's like, best Burnout ever. Who agrees? And it was a picture of Burnout 3. And there was like a whole bunch of upvotes. And the top comment was basically 99% of this subreddit. So at least a lot of people feel the same way I do about Burnout 3. And
yeah,
so kind of looking at Burnout 3 in this game, I'm like, damn, like there's a significant downgrade. So I hate saying that too, because I didn't want to feel that way, but it's just, the game is kind of boring, and there may be other factors contributing to that, but there wasn't a whole lot of content like there was in 3, where 3 just opened up the game, so much.
Yeah.
So like I said, it's felt like we've both said, really, it's an arcade version of Burnout in an era where I felt like they could have put a lot more content into the game, and maybe they didn't because of various reasons, but, yeah, I like being able to unlock new cars and things like that. That's kind of cool. Being able to play as the cop car is nice. But other than that, what am I really unlocking? What kind of content am I guess I can get high scores and things like that. I didn't enjoy it as much as I was hoping that I would.
I actually kind of disagree on the thing you just said specifically about unlocking things that weren't compelling. And while I agree that, cars are cars and more races are more races, and that's kind of it, I do think that the game did a great job of pacing your unlocks. Like after every event in the championship race or in the championship mode, you get something, which I thought was kind of a cool way to keep me interested because it felt like I was progressing. Even if I was, I actually did often use the car that I just unlocked with some exceptions. So for me, it did feel like I was building up towards something. And then at the end of the game, like when you unlock the final Grand Prix, it tells you you've unlocked the final Grand Prix. And I was like, ooh, like this is going to be good. And it ended up being like just kind of a really long one, but I still enjoyed it because I just think my baseline enjoyment level of the game was higher than it was for you, which is fine.
Right.
So yeah, I guess I just had a different experience, and obviously, lacking the Burnout 3 thing. What's funny about the comment or the story that you told about Reddit, how everyone was like, Burnout 3 is obviously the best. I was looking at the Metacritic for this one, and there were just so many like 95 and 100 scores from back in the day, like from professional critics.
Right.
And I'm like, man, like they must have just been blown out the water when the third game came out.
Yeah.
if they thought this game was so awesome.
And I looked up the scores for both. Yeah. Because I was curious as well. I was like, Burnout 2 got like an 88. I was like, really? And then I looked at Burnout 3 and it was like 92 or 94. I'm like, oh, damn. Yeah. That makes sense. And I'm really excited for, when you come to visit again, maybe I can get a copy of Burnout 3. I think it'd be really fun if we both played that game.
Yeah, for sure. You've definitely been making me hype for it.
Yeah. So maybe we'll have to just have to find the whole game. We'll just have to get it.
Just have to get it. I wonder if your experience would change in any significant way if you played in first person.
I switched to first person and I was driving. I was like, nah, I like seeing my car. So I think I just have a different preference on that.
Yeah. What was funny is that after driving in first person for so long, I did like half of a race in third person kind of towards the end of my playthrough. But then I was like, I feel like I can't see anything because my car's in the way.
That is kind of funny.
Yeah.
Man.
Seems like we're kind of done with content. Is that the case?
much like the game itself, this episode is very short.
Yeah. Kind of expected, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree. It's a very simple game. Not a lot of flavor. That's my own personal opinion. But go ahead and give your ratings. Let's just do it.
I gave content an 85.
85, damn. Well, you're not going to like this. I gave content a 63.
Oh my gosh.
Oof. Right in the stomach.
I have failed you, Peter.
I have failed you, Peter. I have failed you.
You were saying you wanted an excuse to say that before we started recording, so here you go.
There you go.
Well, I look forward to seeing what these scores all average out to, and we will share those results with you after we do some number crunching.
After these few messages from our sponsors. I wish we had sponsors. That would have been a good time to...
Brought to you by NordVPN.
NordVPN.
They've been a lot of YouTube videos I've been watching lately. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. We've crunched the numbers. And before we tell you the cumulative total, we will do the recap of our individual scores. For me, I gave gameplay an 85, visuals a 75, audio also a 75. So, spoiler alert, my aesthetics rating was a 75. And content, I gave an 85. So my overall score was an 81.7.
Nice. I gave gameplay a 76. And for my aesthetics, I gave visuals an 86. Audio a 77, which brings my aesthetics score to 81.5. And then the content was a 63, bringing my overall score to 73.5. Thus making the IG score a 77.6, which is ranked 37th among 40 games on the IG podcast.
Finally, another terrible game to add to our collection.
Well, it is ranked like a 77, so not horrible. It's in company. Well, it's not really it kind of stands alone in this.
Oh, interesting.
In the scoring. The one above it is Luigi's Mansion at 80.3. Below it is Ukulele at 72.7. So there's like a whole 70 range that is untapped here on the IG podcast. So we need some more 70 rated games.
That's interesting because I enjoyed this game significantly more than I enjoyed Luigi's Mansion.
Yeah, that is interesting. I think in theory we could have weighted gameplay or content a little more, but I don't know. I like the way we have it. Stick to the plan.
Yeah. So, yeah, I guess closing thoughts. It would be hard to recommend this game to someone nowadays, especially when Burnout 3 was apparently such an amazing game that I definitely want to try with my boy Kev.
Hell yeah.
But simple game. I think it did what it did pretty well. It's just hard to compare it to the newer and better iteration.
Right. I agree, man. It wasn't quite the game for me. Can't say I would recommend, like you said, recommend it over Burnout 3. But if there's somebody who would want to randomly play Burnout 2, just play Burnout 3. The community.
Don't try it.
The community on Reddit agrees with you.
Well, I guess that's kind of it for this episode. It feels weird having a recording of this pretty short length, but it's the way it is, I guess. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. If you want more of the Interstate Gamers, we do have a Twitter account, the IG_cast. Check us out on there for sometimes the random tweet about random gaming type stuff. If you want to give us any feedback, we love hearing from all of you. So if you want to tell us your thoughts on this episode or anything else, really, you can drop us a line on Twitter. We also have an Instagram, which is, I think, just the IG Cast. Is that right, Kevin?
Yeah, it's the IG Cast.
Beautiful. Also, the IG Cast is the domain of our website, theigcast.com, lovingly handcrafted by our very own Kevin K. Slugs.
Yes.
Definitely go visit that. Look at all our ratings. You can sort the ratings, which I find actually very helpful when I'm deciding what to rate a new game.
Right.
So you can go ahead and do that if you're curious. If you're a stats person like we are, you can go ahead and check that out.
Shout outs to our lovely supporters in our Patreon, Mr. Ryan Everett, Simon Webb, and Z-Link. Thank you for your generous contributions to our podcast. We make use of that money pretty well, I would say.
Me too.
If any of you would like to support us, that is the best way to do so. It helps us really just add the games that you want to hear and that we want to play to, review for you guys. So, yeah.
Yeah, there's probably going to be a pretty good number of more modern games, especially Switch games next season. So your generous contributions definitely help pay for those.
Hell yeah. And stay tuned for the next 2 episodes of this season because they're going to be good. Like, they're going to be real good, and I'm really excited.
They're going to be good. They're going to be like the Burnout 3 of the season.
They're going to be the Burnout 3s of the season. Yeah.
All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for listening. Have a great rest of your day or night, and love you too.
Love you too, guys. Hell yeah.